Greetings, y'all. Sir Sparky here, and today I'm about to give you all a cartoon character review on everyone's favorite alien, Stitch. And believe you me, he is plumb amazing. See, Stitch was created by a scientist named Dr. Jamba Jukipa. He had amazing abilities, but his only weakness is water. In fact, they made a movie about him called Lilo and Stitch from 2002. And boy howdy, was that something. You see, Jamba and Stitch was brought to Turo before the United Galactic Federation. But things got crazy, and next thing you know, Jamba ended up in jail, and Stitch was sentenced to exile by order of Captain Gantu. But he made a narrow escape and took a space cruiser and ended up on Earth, which they tracked him down to an island called Kiowani, which is somewhere in Hawaii. They're planning to gas the planet, but thanks to an Earth expert, Agent Pleakley, who told them that mosquitoes are an endangered species. But the Grand Councilwoman paired up with Jamba, and they were ordered to retrieve Stitch. Whew, boy howdy, was that something. And next thing you know, once on Earth, he got hit by a truck, and that's where ended up in a animal shelter. That's where he met Lilo, along with her teenage sister Nani. You see, they became orphans when their parents ended up in a car crash, and the social worker, Hobo Bubbles, was threatening to take Lilo away from Nani and place her in foster care. Next thing you know, Jamba completely arrived disguised as tourists, and that's when things got a little bit out of hand. You see, Nami got fired, and she tried to get a new job. But things didn't go as planned when Leo tried to make Stitch a model citizen. And that's when Nani's friend David offered her and Lilo a surfing lesson. Well, let's just say Stitch joined in, but he had a little problem when Jamba completely almost captured him. But next thing you know, they got fired, and the Grand Councilwoman sends Captain Gando to retrieve him. And that's when things got him, when Jamba attacked the house and destroyed it. And next thing you know, Leo was about to be taken by Cobra, but she managed to escape, but ended up captured by Gantu, along with Stitch. But luckily, Stitch made a narrow escape and managed to ask Jamba and Pleakley to rescue her. So they did. Except the part of the Grand Councilwoman had Gantu retired and was about to take 626, also known as Stitch. But he ended up exiled, living with Lilo. Boy howdy, ain't that amazing. In this other movie, Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch has a glitch from 2005. You see, Stitch had a nightmare. Boy howdy, was not pretty. And next thing, Lilo was practicing her hula lesson. And that night during a monster movie, Stitch had a little bit of a glitchy problem, and Jamba figured it out. Turns out, Stitch was not fully charged ever since Jamba was arrested. They thought of a way to recharge him. If they don't, let's say it won't be pretty. Well, let's just say they tried everything, and Leo was participating in the hula competition, but next thing you know, Stitch tried to make a way to fix it, but next thing you know, he tried to run away, but luckily Lilo to prevent that and rescued him. Whew, boy, howdy, was that amazing. And in this movie, Stitch the movie that is, from 2003, you see Gantu was recruited by a hamster alien named Jacques von Hamsterville, who happens to be Jumba's old partner, and he ordered him to retrieve the other experiments, which is somewhere on Earth. And at a luau, Leo told Stitch that everyone liked to be called cousin, but since they're not related. Well, let's just say it didn't go so well. So Stitch asks Jumba why doesn't he have cousins? And next you know, Gantu captured Jumba and took him to his old partner, along with the experimental pod. Well, they tried to rescue him, but it didn't go so well. And that's when I found out that Stitch wasn't the only experiment. They tried to rehydrate one, but Blakely warned them about the consequences. Once Jumba took it to the interrogation room to meet his old partner, they unleashed Experiment 625. But it turns out he was a lazy coward, but he makes great sandwiches. And next thing you know, Leo Stitch unleash Experiment 221, which is an electrical type. And that's when Blakely called the detention cell phone, and Hamsterville offers a ransom of the other experiments, but they'll never see Jumba alive. Well, they called Cobra Bubbles for help, but they managed to track down Experiment 221, and they captured him and named him Sparky. Well, luckily they managed to meet the rendezvous to meet Dr. Hamsterville, but the Grand Councilwoman arrived to destroy them, but Sparky intervened. Next thing you know, Leo and Stitch went up to the Gantu ship and managed to rescue the other experiments. But next thing you know, they got captured, and Hamsterville was about to clone Stitch, and Leo was about to be sentenced to a zoo. But the plan was intervened by Sparky, and they managed to capture Hamsterville and maroon Gantu's ship on the Hawaiian island along with 625. Whew. Boy, howdy, ain't that something. So Leo told the Grand Councilwoman they planned to rehabilitate the experiments. Whew. And that's when the animated series started, as in Leo and Stitch, the series, from 2003 to 2006. As you see, Lilo and Stitch ends up capturing the other experiments, along with Gantu and Experiment 625. They too capture some experiments. Boy, they even seen elemental experiments, cute experiments, even experiments that speaks English. And also Stitch met his long of interest, Angel. Woo! They even did a crossover with other Disney Channel characters like Jake Long, Kim Possible, The Proud Family, The Recess Gang. Whoop, whoop. Boy, ain't that something. And also made another movie called Leroy and Stitch from 2006. You see, of all their efforts of capturing Jumba's experiments, the 4 was rewarded, but it turns out they're not returning to Earth. You see, Jumba have his own laboratory back, completely became a professor at a community college, and Stitch became the new captain. Everything was great at first until Gantu planned to release Dr. Jacques von Hamsterville and abandon Experiment 625. Boy, was that harsh. And next thing you know, bada bing, bada boom, they hold Jumba hostage and they unleashed an experiment that looks like Stitch, but red and nasty, named Leroy. Once Stitch tried to capture him, it didn't go so well thanks to the interference of Blakely. And next thing you know, they were strapped and hanging off to a black hole. Well, Leo tried to get a hold of Stitch by arriving at Gantu's ship, that's where she met 625 and named him Reuben. Once they called her, it turns out there was a fake Stitch. Boy. So they planned to fix Gantu's ship and blasted him out to Turo to warn the Grand Council, while Leroy ended up trying to retrieve the other experiments by using Lilo's scrapbook. Yikes. And next you know, Stitch and Jumba and Pleakley, they were about to be swallowed by the black hole when they used Leo's rock to stop it. Once on Turo, Lilo and Reuben were captured and Gantu got fired. But he turned from bad to good and managed to rescue them. And next thing you know, thanks to help of Stitch and Jumba and Pleakley, they managed to make a narrow escape. And Leroy took the cousins to the arena. But luckily they were rescued. And next thing you know, all the Leroy clones and experiments battle. Boy, was that something. But luckily Jumba shut off switch by using the sound Aloha Oi. Boom! They were all shut down and Hamsterville was captured. Next thing you know, Stitch, Jumba, and Pleakley returned to Earth. Boy, was that something. In fact, they made an animated series about Stitch. Well, it was anime. You see, Stitch ended up somewhere on an island in the Ryukyus off the shores of Okaria called Zoe. That's where he met a karate expert, Yuna, who lives with her grandmother. And let's just say, along with Jumba and Pleakley, they encountered yokai. Boy, howdy, ain't that something. And next you know, they met some of Stitch's experimental cousins, along with his Triss Angel. And next you know, Hamsterville, Gantu, and Reuben are also there, causing mayhem. But they managed to meet a new friend named Bugu, who escaped from prison, but was rehabilitated. And then Yuna and Stitch ended up in a city called Ukiah Newtown. Boy, howdy, was that something. That's when they had to deal with a villainess named Dahlia. And boy, howdy, was she bad. And that's when Stitch met his long-lost childhood friend Lilo, who has a daughter named Ani. Whew, boy, ain't that something. You know, they also had a new short film of Stitch called Lilo and Scratch. Yikes. It turns out Scratch is some sort of cat who happens to be an alien. Yikes, and things got a little bit out of hand at first. Whoa. You know, it would have been better if they made another Stitch anime series, but in the Marvel Universe theme. Picture this. Stitch was captured by Yadu Untanta, along with his Revengers goons. Yikes. And next thing you know, it turns out he was working with Thanos to capture Stitch, but he managed to escape and ended up in New York. That's where he met Franklin Richards, along with the Power Pack kids. And together, they managed to take down bad guys, even meet Stitch's cousins, including Scratch. Whew, boy, would that be something. And they do a little superhero team-up, like the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man. Whoo-hoo. Boy, would that be something. Even the Secret Warriors. Whoo-hoo. Boy, would that be great. Tell me what you viewers think.